Hello, this is your night session, your evening session. I pray that this morning session really helped you out based on what we were talking about when we said we have got to learn to see things the way God sees them. I had a day that I felt like today as I was going through, the normal day's work, thinking that, well, I'm trying to see through God's eyes, but some of this stuff is kind of working on my nerves. Some of these people working on my nerves. Patience is a virtue. But when we are seeing things through the eyes of God, we're not looking at the situation that we would think in our hearts about what we're feeling, whether we're tired or frustrated, but we're trying to have the patience. That's one of those fruits, and one of those fruits that we all have trouble with. But I want you to know that based on this session that you had this morning, you got to admit that we sometimes find ourselves getting hooked up and saying things and doing things that put us in position to be, in a way, sort of like a destructive thinking or just addictive thinking like we're talking about. But I want to share in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. It says, "Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established." See, what it is that we cannot just commit just our bodies to move and do things. We've got to commit our hearts to the matter. That means if I see something or I'm impatient, I've got to see it through God's eye. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they're slower. Maybe they're mad and tired too. So I have to keep, especially if you say you're saved, that's where the warfare comes in at. The devil know what button to push, because it knows how, you're frustrated, you're tired, you're sleepy, whatever that is. But I wanted to share that we've got to learn that we have got to see things and walk with the fullness of God in our hearts. And that's what that scripture is saying to us too. If we commit our works unto the Lord, and our thoughts shall be established. That means if we keep our hearts, that means not just what you think, thinking right then, but your body is going to move according to the abundance of your heart. And so you've got to ask yourself from this morning session, how did I see others today? And what did I learn about myself today? Concerning me seeing things the way God sees them. And so, as you begin to see the way God sees things in the spirit, it starts to calm you down. You start to think, Lord, just, what would Jesus do? A lot of days I don't even want to do the what would Jesus do. I just want to sometimes just take somebody and shake them and go, you need to straighten up. You working on my nerves with this same old lazy, lackadaisy mess. That's not just with our children, but that's even in the Christendom. But, think about the way you saw others in this path today. And think about how the information that you saw coming from them, or the body language coming from them, what supply of that information do you think that you need to seek about yourself now? Think about these questions as I'm saying them to you. You ponder them. You ask yourself, am I pleased with who I was with most of the encounters that I came in contact today? Am I pleased? And most importantly, you're going to find out you need to ask yourself that question, because if you don't, you weren't pleased. Jesus wasn't pleased either. So was I pleased, and was the Lord pleased with most of the encounters that I had today? And then here's the next test. Write them down. Make a list of all of those encounters, some of those that that was a little hard or was really frustrating and challenging today. Write those things or those situations down. You don't want to put a name to them, but I think it's good to put a name to them. And then ask yourself, which areas of my behavior do I need to address? Do I need to address the frustration, behavior, attitude, my facial expressions, my body language, where I'm slamming doors, or got my lips stuck out and my arms folded? What do I need to address about me? And they see, because naming them will keep us honest, right? If we name them, then what? We can pull them down. Because most of the spirits that come to attack us in this addictive thinking is because we won't address them. All we say is, they just know how I am. It's just how I am. I'm just real impatient like that. But the devil is a lie. That's a spirit that we have we have adopted too long, and that's why it's become addictive in our thinking. And see, you got to ask yourself also, did fear rule me in the situation today? Did fear, did anger, look at all the 8 basic emotions. fear, anger, joy, peace. Start looking at those to see which one of those ruled you the most in the situation that you were being challenged with. And then you should ask God to help you revision. That means revision the thing. Go back and meditate on that. That's why you're trying to rethink how you should have handled the situation. For just a few moments before you go to bed tonight, I want you to have this conversation with God. See, because having this conversation with God says you are willing to get rid of the addictive thinking. You want to believe, God, that having him as your companion in all the situation, this means that you'll always have his guide. You'll always know that he's there to help you out of a situation when you know sometimes you want to lie just to cover things and to have peace sake. But you've got to work on the addictive thinking, because addictive thinking also brings a lying spirit, deception, and everything else that come with that demon or that spirit, if you want to call it that, because they say once we saved, forgetting that we've got to fight our way through. But suggestions, I believe, is the thing that we need to do when we're asking people something. Suggest and not always demand, so you won't flow back into the control mode again. But remember this, that the capacity to do anything, God will lead us if we will seek him. And most importantly, we got to know that if he leads us, and if you know his voice is holy, his voice is sovereign, his voice is what? It's undeniable, it's unquestionable. And that means if he speaks to you, it's the sovereignty of his voice that says, Sandy, be quiet. Sandy, change your attitude. Sandy, look at your facial expression. Sandy, calm down. And I know he's saying that to you. Don't think like that. Don't do that. And say it out loud with me. Go ahead and say it. I have the capacity to allow God to lead me if I choose to have God to be my leader. Say it. And I know his voice. Say it. Say it out loud. His voice is holy. His voice is peaceful. His voice is sovereign. His voice is undeniable, and his voice is unquestionable. And then you will know that the Lord has all of the great things that he's promised for us. You will say, Lord, to him every night now as you're being challenged. Lord, what is it that you know that I want, that I need the most to change this addictive thinking? And how is it that it's so hard for me? And that's when he's going to probably tell you the very thing, my daughter, my son, that's very painful, that seems unjust, that seems fearful, that seems, shameful. Whatever that is, that just might be the one that he's saying, give it to me. You got to trust me with that. And many times we just need to simply be quiet. But you know what? Quietness says a lot of times people think you're dumb, but many times we talk too much anyway, too much information. But I want to leave you with this quote, and it's by Rachel Riemann. She says, the most basic and powerful way to connect to another person in the spirit is what I add to it, is to simply listen. Just listen. We won't listen to our children. We won't listen to the other person. We always jumping in. They're trying to get it clear to us and trying to explain something. Listening is very powerful. Because you know what? Even a fool knows how to be quiet and won't tell you what they're going to do. She goes on to say, perhaps the most important thing we ever give each other is our attention. And that's what's so needed today. See, a loving silence often has far more power to heal and to connect than the most well-intentioned words. You just want to test today and take those little nuggets I gave you for the night and use them as your nightcap. And just remember, the less is the better, and the more is when you're seeking him for the refilling. Well, it's up to you. Good night. I love you.